Hello, Master.
Master.
Hi,
Master.
How are you?
Oh,
We're good,
very
thank you,
well.
Master. And how is Master?
I'm good. I'm good.
Oh,
great.
good, Master.
I'm good. No big problems. Thank God. Thank God.
Yes, thank God.
Last time I told you food doesn't taste good and I don't eat well, and after that I ate a lot. I can't say anything. Yeah. Okay. I ate a lot one time and it tasted so good. But
That's good to hear, Master.
only that time. Thanks to your prayers. Yeah. Okay. How was the food? The vegan cheese? Everything okay? That's good.
Oh, yes, very nice,
excellent.
Master.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's very authentic.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Master.
You're welcome, all of you. Listen, we have to rotate. If we have some cheese, we have to take turns to eat. Not everybody can have it at one time.
Yes, Master.
Because the vegan cheese is so popular that we have to queue to order, you know? Yeah, if you buy
Yes.
1 or 2 pieces, then maybe they have it, but I have an army. In-house army.
Yes, Master.
I can't just give to one and not give to the other.
Yes, Master.
Yes, Master.
So whatever you can have, just count your luck, okay?
Yes, Master.
understand.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Master.
We always appreciate, Master.
Yeah. I ordered some more, but normally they should have come like today. But then they said the vegan cheese hasn't developed enough yet. We have to wait maybe a week or more.
Oh.
Not certain. So just drooling and waiting, huh?
Yes, Master.
It's so popular. Or some don't make it quick enough, yeah? Because it takes time to age.
Yes, Master.
And once they're sold, you have to wait for a new batch.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I have some good news that I like to report to you.
Oh, yes, great, Master.
I read it on the news, on the internet.
Yes, Master.
Like UK says that UK troops must prepare to fight in Europe again. They prepare.
Yes.
Well, it's not very good news, but what I mean is they have this kind of correct view already.
Yes, Master.
Not waiting till the last minute, like what happened in Ukraine.
Yes,
Master.
They are prepared in and training. Also, NATO is training somewhere. The US also. EU leaders, many leaders went to Kyiv, including Macron,
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
the president of France, and the leader of Italy, Draghi, and from Romania, and from Germany.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even Macron in Germany, they all came kissing and each other and all that. So romantic. It's some nice scenery for a change.
Yes.
For a change from only war scenery all the time up to now, huh?
Definitely.
Yes, Master.
They seem to be all very united and supportive of Ukraine.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Of things turn out even stronger than that.
Доводить, що Росія не обирає. Не обирає, кому і коли погрожувати. Не обирає, кому в Європі дійсно дарувати безпеку. Російська агресія проти України – це агресія проти всієї Європи, проти всієї об'єднаної Європи, проти кожного з нас, проти наших спільних цінностей. І тільки об'єднаною має бути і наша відповідь.
Nous avons enfin évoqué ensemble notre volonté de confirmer par les actes, au-delà des mots, que l'Ukraine fait partie de la famille européenne. Tous les quatre, nous soutenons le statut de candidat immédiat à l'adhésion à l'Union européenne pour l'Ukraine.
Oggi ho visitato Irpin, un luogo di massacri compiuti dall'esercito russo. Sono fatti terribili che turbano nel profondo e che condanniamo senza esitazioni. Diamo il nostro completo sostegno alle indagini degli organismi internazionali sui crimini di guerra.
Sie ne vmerla Ukraina. L'Ukraine n'est pas morte, ni la gloire, ni la liberté de l'Ukraine ne sont mortes. Vous pouvez compter sur la fraternité de l'Europe pour faire en sorte que l'Ukraine reste libre.
I'm glad that they continue to help and support Ukraine
Yes, Master.
because people worry. I also worry that they get into fatigue mood.
Yes,
Right,
Master.
yes.
If the thing goes on for long, then people get fatigued. Me too, but that doesn't mean we don't continue to support and pray for them.
That's right,
Yes,
Master.
Master.
Yes, Master.
And also, Europe is beginning to use coal again now, like Holland, Germany, and Austria to begin with. They're doing some of the right things now. All that we talked about before,
Yes.
they're doing better. Using coal is not ideal, but it's still better than being slave to Russia for gas.
All right, Master.
Besides, Russia just shut or halved or slowed the supply of gas. Just did that, even without EU canceling.
Right.
They canceled the oil, but all these countries did not cancel gas yet. And Russia just turned the tap off, turned the gas off, or slowed it down, gives less.
Right.
So they turn to coal now. Maybe later they will find something better. There's always something better.
Yes,
Yes,
that's right,
Master.
Master.
Science will find out. They have found out also some things already. Like even nowadays, they can produce the water from air. You know that?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, just some little machine, and they give you 10 liters per day. It's simple.
هذه آلة اسمها كوميلوس. الهدف تاعها اللي هي تصنع لك الماء صالح للشراب من الطاقة الشمسية ومن الهواء. المبدأ اللي احنا نعاودوا ونكرروا الفينومين دو لا غوزي، الندوة بتاع الصباح. دونك شنو يصير؟ جي نشوف من هوني الهواء يدخل من هنايا، يباس يتعدى من الفلتر الأولاني بتاع الهواء باش ينحاو منه لي بارتيكول اللي يوسخوا الهواء، ومن بعد يدخل في قلب الماكينة، وفي قلب الماكينة تنزل التمبيراتور الحرارة بتاع الماء باش ينجموا نعملوا الفينومين دو لا غوزي ولا بتاع الندوة، وقتها الماء يتحل. عندنا شح مياه كبير برشا في العالم العربي، كما قلت لك معناها 12 على 17 أكثر بلدان تعاني من شح المياه موجودين في العالم العربي. وشح المياه ذا بالتغيرات المناخية ماشي ويزيد، معناها احنا نشوفوا في التقلبات المناخية ونشوفوا زادة في الرصوص الماء اللي تحت الأرض ماشية وتنقص. الماكينة ذي كما نقولوا باراديغم شيفت، اللي هي توفر لك الماء اللي هو موجود ديجا في الهواء بالندوة اللي موجودة في المغرب، في الجزائر، في تونس، في العربية السعودية، تصنع الماء من الندوة اللي موجودة في الهواء. دونك هي تمثل حل من الحلول القويين برشا بالنسبة لمشكلة شح المياه اللي نعنيو بها.
Very simple, easy. That's a very important water, you know, very important. Without water, we cannot survive. Most people cannot.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true,
Yes,
Master.
true.
So that is some good news. I want you to know that people are doing some right things now.
Oh, wonderful,
Yes,
Master.
Master. It is. Thank you for sharing.
Do you have any good news or questions?
We have a question.
Tell me.
Master has said before that NATO should go in with force to flush Russia out from Ukraine. But NATO would actually say that they could not go in due to their rules, as they would only protect themselves. What would Master say to NATO's comments that they could not go into Ukraine because of their rules?
To hell with their rules. People are dying, tens of thousands on both sides. And the world is heading to starvation.
Yes.
Yes, Master.
And what for does NATO keep the rules? Huh? The rules are for people, not people for the rules, no?
Yes,
That's right, Master.
They just cowards. So easy. You know, life is never like black and white. You always have to act according to the situation.
Yes, that's true, Master.
Yes, Master.
Even doctors, they all have rules, but when in different situations, they have to act differently.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Master.
true.
Suppose a man or woman is wounded on the road by accident or something and is brought to the hospital. Normally, doctors who want to operate, they have to have the patient sign the paper
Yes.
Yes.
before they do an operation. Or they maybe ask their family to sign the paper, to sign that it's okay, they agree to the operation.
Yes.
But the man has no family members and he's unconscious. So does the doctor just stand there waiting for the patient to wake up and to sign the paper, even if his arm's already broken and he could not move, and he's unconscious?
No, Master.
Makes sense.
We are intelligent people, or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Master.
Supposed to be.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
And the NATO chief should know more than just ordinary NATO members.
Yes, true.
He should know better than other people. That's why he's the chief.
Yes,
Master.
Master.
So all this is rubbish. Unless Stoltenberg, the chief of NATO, wanted Ukraine to continue to suffer. Because the longer they suffer, the more other countries will want to join NATO. And he will feel more big and powerful as a chief.
Oh, God.
Right.
Or they want another world, starvation. Or just to say this simply, in Ukraine, unless he wants another Holodomor famine, like in 1933.
Yes, Master.
It was under Stalin's rule at that time.
Yes, Master.
Master.
And a great famine happened for more or less a year. It is said that 5 million people, estimated only, it might be more, who died in the Soviet Union. Most of them were Ukrainians.
Wow.
The famine was a direct assault on the Ukrainian peasantry because Stalin moved a lot of Russian people to Ukraine and moved the Ukrainians to Russia, for example, like that.
Yes, Master.
Yes, Master.
And under Stalin, they controlled the peasants, the farming. They did not let the people have anything more than what Russia ruled.
Yes, Master.
So many of the people did not have enough food to eat. And Russia sent their police or brigade special units to always go into Ukraine to take their things. And they went into their homes all the time, different houses, and took out the food stuff, if they thought it was too much food for that family.
Yes, Master.
And even then, even at that time, if somebody supposedly had more food than they were supposed to, according to Russian law at that time, then they were committing a crime.
Oh.
And then the farmers, the peasants who were hungry and maybe keep some food, even hiding it, the Russians would take it out and they would even kill them.
Oh.
Yeah, they kill them by firing squad for stealing or keeping, hiding even just a sack of wheat.
Oh my gosh.
They call it stealing from the state.
Yes,
Yes, Master.
So it's because of hunger. The rural population at that time never had sufficient food to feed themselves. Imagine that.
Yes, Master.
So, of course, according to that situation, starvation was massive, was huge in 1933.
So tragic.
Yeah. But even then, Moscow at that time did not provide any extra relief for the famine, for the starvation at that time. And at the same time, the Soviet Union exported more than 1 million tons of grain to other countries, to the West, while their own people starved in Ukraine.
Oh, God.
Their food became the state food.
Yes,
Yes,
Master.
It was stored in any silos, and it became state-owned property.
Right.
Well, Russia has long sought to determine the destiny of Ukraine. Under Soviet communism, as many as 4 million died of hunger when Moscow forced people from small holdings to disastrously inefficient collective farms. The bitterness remains to this day.
As the Kremlin's choirs praised Stalin, the world was told of a happy land.
And today it is above all the granary of Eastern Europe, with the black earth bringing forth millions of acres of wheat.
But 95-year-old Petro Mohelat knows what a lie that was. Forced collectivization of farms brought starvation and terror to his family.
It was very scary. There was a brigade with pitchforks who came to every house searching for bread. I was 5 at that time. We locked the door and all the windows, but they used crowbars to come inside. And then they went to all the barns trying to find any buried bread.
Food was seized to punish peasants who resisted collectivization. It's thought up to 4 million people died in what Ukraine calls the Holodomor, killing through hunger. Russia denies the famine was a deliberate attempt to break the independent spirit of Ukrainians. Alexandra Zaharova, aged 98, remembers the corpses of the starved.
What could I see? I saw people who died. They made a big pit and threw all the bodies there. My father went to Western Ukraine, taking everything good from our home to exchange for food. But he got nothing. You can say I had a life, but it was no life.
Near the family home, there's a mass grave from the famine era. It's also an important part of modern Ukraine's story of origin. This idea of a nation in the 1930s suffering the oppression of a dictatorship based in Moscow. This old steel door here?
Yeah.
Ukrainians who resisted ended up in places like this.
Some historians say 5,000 or 10,000 people was killed here in this basement.
Interrogation cells of the secret police in Kiev.
Was here.
It's just impossible to imagine what went through people's minds as they came through that door into this place.
Yeah, pain.
Investigation of Stalin's crimes has been suppressed in Russia.
They protect Stalin, they hide truth, they attack us, they don't recognize us like independent country. Why? We don't understand why.
The farmers produced food and the state took it more and gave them only very little, not enough. If they took a little bit more, then they'd be shot dead by firing squad. Even just one bag of wheat.
Yes,
Yes. Horrendous.
That's shocking.
Yeah. So everywhere Russia went, all these decades, it's just starvation, destruction, demolition, and murdering people in different types of ways. Either shooting them or just starving them to death.
So bad. Terrible.
Yeah, and everywhere is like devastated.
Yes.
And that's how they conquer many other countries. They even say that people who take food like that, they call them terrorists.
Oh,
Yes.
Food terrorists.
Wow.
Oh,
They say food terrorism must be stopped. So 5 million people die at least. And most of those were Ukrainian people.
So evil.
Yeah, yeah. And Russia, since decades already, brought a lot of Russian people into Ukraine to make it more Russian and easier to control.
Yes, Master.
Then they wanted to Russianize all the Ukrainians and delete their identity at that time.
Yes, Master.
So if Europe or NATO wants that to happen again, then they would just stand by doing nothing and wait until that happens. And if Ukraine is lost, the whole Europe will be lost sooner or later.
Yes, Master. That's right.
Oh man, oh man. And now you can see starvation already has begun in many countries in the world already due to Russia's war in Ukraine because they cannot export all this grain that they have.
That's right.
And it will stand there and get rotten if it cannot go out to other countries.
Yes.
yes.
And Russia already stole their grain and sold it elsewhere. And then, of course, with those under Russian occupation or Russia-backed separatists, all this farm produce will go away, exported by Russia elsewhere.
Yes, Master.
Right.
So it's already begun. The starvation of the world now, not just of Ukraine like last time.
Yes, Master.
Український аграрний експорт виконує стабілізуючу роль на глобальному ринку. І Росія має відповісти за те, що провокує проти Європи нову міграційну хвилю, використовуючи мешканців і Африки, і Азії, просто як заручник.
This is nothing but an ordinary blackmail, because without the export of the Ukrainian food, hundreds of millions of people are in danger of starvation.
Due to the war in Ukraine, the number of people suffering from hunger across the world could rise to 323 million. This was stated by David Beasley, Executive Director of the UN World Food Programme.
Russia's invasion of its neighbor has effectively ended its food exports.
The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, said that as of the 21st of May, Russia had blocked 22 million tons of food in Ukrainian ports, gradually stealing it, taking it out, and trying to sell it.
Here is a Ukrainian car standing in Jankoy and being reloaded into a Russian car. This is how the product gets into the Russian Federation.
Ukraine is the fourth largest producer of grain in the world. Prices of cereal products are soaring. Experts are anticipating the worst food crisis in the world. Within 2 or 3 months, as experts predict, the countries of North Africa and the Middle East will run out of grain stock. In the meantime, the stolen Ukrainian grain goes to Syria. Egypt and Lebanon have rejected such deliveries.
It's like a global Holodomor famine.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So everywhere Russia went up to now, it's like that. Oh, my God. They don't have any souls, these leaders of Russia. I mean, these wicked leaders. Some Russian leaders were probably good before.
Yes, Master.
But up to now, I mean, since communism took over Russia, everywhere they went is all bloody.
Yes, yes.
Blood everywhere, blood and destruction. Even like Berlin, after the war, Germany became separated into West and East Berlin. And West Berlin continued to prosper and progress and repair all the war-damaged cities, but East Berlin, no. It was short of many things, and Russia did not help much. They weren't short of toilet paper even. They weren't queuing for it.
Wow.
I was in Berlin, in East Berlin. I went there with some friends. They invited me, so I went with them to East Berlin. And it looked so miserable to me. I felt very miserable. I felt they were miserable. And the guards and the police and all that, their faces were like stone. You don't feel a human connection with them. It's kind of scary. I did not want to go there anymore after that. But the private people, the people that my friends knew, they are nice. It's just that the energy, the atmosphere was not so nice. Many ruined buildings or some even important buildings were so ruined and not repaired.
Yes.
Many houses were like half broken or dilapidated. Looked very ruined from outside.
Yes.
The walls and all that were not all nice and all bright like West Berlin and West Germany.
Yes, Master.
And the standard of living there was not good compared to the West Germany that I knew.
Yes, Master.
And so Russia seems to want to divide Ukraine to become like that also. Like East Ukraine and West Ukraine or South Ukraine, North Ukraine.
Yes, Master.
Unless Europe wants to stand by and wait for that to happen, or NATO is making all kinds of lousy excuses to watch Ukrainians suffer, then they don't have to do anything. And wait until Ukraine is lost.
Yes, Master.
I'm worried about Europe, not just Ukraine. That's why I say NATO has to come in with force to flush Russian soldiers out, because they don't belong there. They don't belong in Europe.
Yeah, that's right.
No. They took Crimea just like that, just also by bombing and frightening people. And then they took the Donbass region also like that.
Yes, Master.
Everywhere they go, blood is running all over and destruction everywhere. And people, children die everywhere.
Yes, Master.
They are soulless. Otherwise, they could not have the heart to do all this to an innocent country, their neighbor.
Yes, Master.
There is no excuse, nothing. Everywhere they went is like that. So NATO better stop it. And if NATO doesn't have any guts to do it, then Europe and other countries have to get together and help Ukraine. I mean, practically, totally, with not just weapons, but also with force, with their own soldiers, expertise and everything.
Yes.
They are pledging to continue to help Ukraine despite fatigue. But still, the weapons don't always come on time.
Yes, that's true.
And recently there's some delay on purpose. I don't know what happened or why. And the longer the war continues without enough weapons and power, the more Ukrainians will die.
Yes, that's right.
More Ukrainian soldiers will die, and they probably will be fatigued also. And on top of that, NATO has to predict something, saying something negative, like, oh, the war with Russia will be for a long, long, long time, huh? A long haul.
Yes,
Master.
And because of that, it could affect the morale of the Ukrainian soldiers as well.
Yes, true.
Then they will feel, oh my God, it's a long time, so they don't feel like it. They thought, oh, it's quick, and we use all of our force and our might, our hearts to push the Russians out of our country. But now it feels like it's a long, long time. The war will last longer.
Yes, Master.
The way the NATO chief says, it feels like a long time, forever.
That's right.
Yes.
Why does his mouth have to always say things that are not conducive to help the Ukrainian people?
That's right. Yes.
That's true.
So I'm not sure if NATO ever will go into Ukraine and help them truly, totally, practically.
Yes, Master.
Unless America takes the initiative, takes the lead role and decides that they should go in to help Ukraine with force, with soldiers as well.
Yes, Master.
And with all kinds of things like no-fly zone, which would be more helpful, and better equipment.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
All kinds of things. My God. Nobody wants war. But this war, if they don't fight, they will be done.
Yes, Master. Yes.
Because Ukraine is in Europe. All the European countries are around Ukraine.
Yes. That's right.
If Ukraine's lost, then Russia will continue.
Yes.
Because Russia will use Ukraine's property, bases, and equipment or food to continue to fight.
Yes, that's right.
At the moment, they still have a reserve of money because Russia has prepared this for many years already. Because they know they will be sanctioned or be punished by the West. So Putin has prepared a backup.
Yes, Master.
Yes.
So they befriended many other countries, and now these countries are buying their oil and gas as well. So even Europe all already agree not to buy oil except, Hungary. I told you, the black dot guy.
Yes, Master.
Yes, Master.
They already cut the oil imports. And now even Russia cut their gas. But Russia still has a lot of money because China, India, and other countries bought from Russia.
Yes, Master.
Now it's cheaper, and they bought a lot more than before. And the Germans also bought a lot more than before. Before they decided not to.
Yes, Master.
A lot more than usual before. Now you know. Also, for example, Russia went to Chechnya. They also destroy everything.
Yes, Master.
Yes, Master.
Master, could you tell us more about Chechnya?
Oh. So it's all Russians doing.
Yes, Master. Yes, Master.
And that was not the first time. It was the second time. The first time was under Boris Yeltsin. The second time, at that time, the Prime Minister was Vladimir Putin.
Yes, Master.
He wasn't president, he was Prime Minister the second time. And then the first war had already damaged a lot, especially the capital, Grozny. And then in the second war, they have not even enough time. It was only 1996 that the first war ceased.
Ah, yes.
They settled with a ceasefire with Boris Yeltsin. Boris Yeltsin signed the peace treaty with Chechnya in 1997. But 2 years later, the second Chechen war broke out again, started by Russia. At that time was the future president, Vladimir Putin.
Yes, Master.
Only 2 years, the Chechens had not enough time to recover. That's why he attacked again, because he knew they were still vulnerable and weak.
Yes.
So Grozny was left as a big hole in the map. The United Nations called that hole the most destroyed city on the planet.
Wow.
Almost nothing left standing,
Sad.
Terrible.
and almost no one was spared.
Oh, goodness.
The first war that Putin led was one of the worst humanitarian disasters in recent history. In 1999, when he was only the second most powerful man in Russia, he sent forces into Chechnya, just a few years after the Russian military had previously invaded under Boris Yeltsin. The two relentless Chechen campaigns set the template for Putin's wars. Russian forces flattened the capital, Grozny.
The months of relentless and indiscriminate Russian bombing have left Grozny a dead city.
By the time they'd left, up to 8,000 civilians were dead. And the UN described Grozny as the most destroyed city on Earth. Russia's wars have followed the same pattern ever since.
You can read it in history.
Yes, Master.
And about 250,000 civilians were killed in the combined Chechen wars.
Wow.
And reports of rape, same like in Ukraine right now. Reports of rape, arson, torture, and other crimes by Russian soldiers were widespread and cast as the wholly necessary evil by those forces. The Russians themselves say it's a necessary evil.
Yes, Master.
How can any evil be necessary? Huh?
That's right, Master.
And one of the Russian soldiers at that time told the Los Angeles Times in 2000, we have to be cruel to them, to the Chechen people. Otherwise, we will achieve nothing. Believe that? That's his words. So in order to achieve something, you have to be cruel, no matter if they have done anything to you or not. At that time, Vladimir Putin, already a president, kind of have a direct rule of Chechnya from May 2000. And even then, after 3 years, they give the Chechen government a little bit more power. But they still belong to Russia.
Yes, Master.
And some years later, another Chechen came in, became president, of course, and became rich. They enriched themselves during the time they ruled the Chechen Republic. And he is a very ruthless leader. He's just all pro-Russian.
Yes, Master. Yes.
All pro-Putin. That's why he became president. I think he wasn't voted by the people, but he's just like a puppet for Putin. Putin appointed him to be the president.
Yes, Master.
This president, his name is Kadyrov. People refer to him as a brutal puppet or attack dog of the Russian president, Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
That's what they call him. Because he earned trust from Vladimir Putin. So he became rich. Whatever he does, it doesn't matter. So nobody can check him out, nobody can control him, nothing.
Yes, Master.
He absolutely leans on Russian power from Putin. And then he's an absolutely brutal president and feudalistic type. And he uses his iron fist to rule Chechnya. Thanks to Vladimir Putin. Thanks to Russia.
Yes.
At the moment, the leader of Chechnya acts the same. He is a complete puppet of Putin, of the Kremlin. He even brought his people to Ukraine to kill the Ukrainian people for Putin, for the Kremlin. And he should know there was no reason to do that. But because Russia completely controls Chechnya, so all the leaders, whoever they might be, if they don't listen to the Kremlin, if they don't do what the Kremlin orders, they will not survive. Not to talk about continue to be in the leading role in Chechnya. So, if Ukraine loses, it will be the same. Russia will install any so-called leader there in Ukraine just to be a slave and listen to absolutely every order from the Kremlin.
Yes, Master.
You can see the evidence.
Yes, Master.
Yes, Master.
And this Mr. Kadyrov, the so-called head of the Chechen Republic, since 2007 until now. That is a long, long time for head of a state.
Yes,
Yes,
Master.
Master.
Similar to Putin and the president of Belarus. They have things in common. Maybe that's why they like each other. And in order to survive so long as a head, I guess he has to be the absolute hand and feet of the head of Russia, the Kremlin.
Yes.
Yes.
Kadyrov is brutally oppressing, killing, murdering, torturing the Ukrainians because this is the same mentality as Putin, and he's absolutely under Kremlin's control. But I don't know if he's proud of himself or he just has to for survival. Because if he truly wants to be proud of himself, he should not do all this. He's a man. He should be an independent thinker and a true leader of his people. And instead, he became like a devil for the Kremlin.
For any Chechens who dare to question Kadyrov, the options are morbid. Either stay and die or run in fear.
I bartkalbaks lielostalongs ju apitnes eldits jutsalongs uswe ye na tuak na hu hier na soutse weims wat dat hour.
And nowhere seems to be safe. Secretive Chechen death squads hunt Europe and further afield. Critics of Kadyrov have been brutally murdered in Berlin, Vienna, Lille, and even Dubai. More recently, Kadyrov has turned his aggression into the Chechen Republic's LGBTQ+ population. Homosexuality and gender nonconformity have always been a taboo in the state. But in 2017, Kadyrov began what has since been described as a genocide of young men and women.
It became a project of eliminating every person who could possibly be suspected of LGBTQ emotions or thoughts, if not activity.
Survivors have spoken about being held in concentration camp-like detention centers, where they were beaten and tortured with electric shocks. Others were freed with the understanding that their own families would punish them even worse than the state. When the media began to report this, Kadyrov declared that gay Chechens do not exist.
Это ерунда. У нас таких людей нету. Нету у нас геев подальше от нас, чтобы очистили кровь там, если есть таких, пусть забирают.
Escaped survivors of the genocide are still fearful for their lives, fearful that Kadyrov's death squad could come and find them. Kadyrov's reign seems to have no limits, but one wonders when he will go too far, even for Putin. Putin rarely condemns Kadyrov, and Russian money pours into the region.
For Vladimir Putin, he is still convenient for the Kremlin. And that's the reason he remains in power and is able to do whatever he does.
It's really a very sad affair. I think his people will not like him, or they don't like him, or maybe they never liked him, but they just have to be quiet because they fear war, they fear more bloodshed and more torture, more suffering from Russia.
Yes, yes.
I think he also has, I hope, maybe I'm wrong, he also had some moments of shame and regret, but he was already under the yoke, could not fight against the Kremlin. So he had to be brutal, or maybe he is brutal, because his soldiers that he brought to Ukraine to die or to fight are reportedly very vicious, extremely brutal.
Yes, yes, Master.
So maybe they're all the same gang, just in different locations. That's why they get together and try to destroy wherever they can in Ukraine. So there will be no future for Ukraine if it's lost. There will be no freedom. And as I told you already, the whole of the Ukrainian people all stand up against the war from the Kremlin. So if Russia has a chance to control Ukraine, then all these people will be treated like prisoners, slaves, or enemies continuously, and they will suffer no end. They will suffer no end.
Yes, Master. Yes. They will be brutally oppressed.
Or molested. The Russians will continue murdering or raping or taking everything from them.
Yes, Master.
And they might not give them enough food to eat just like before, just like decades ago.
Yes, Master. Yes, Master.
Therefore, that's why I don't care what happens to me because of all this karma. I have to say it. I have to say NATO has to come in, totally committed to having Ukraine, to flush Russia out.
Yes, Master.
And if not, then Europe and other countries have to courageously stand up, go in to have Ukraine, because that means they're helping themselves, and they will be safe if Russia loses the war in Ukraine.
Yes, that's right.
If Ukraine regains their complete freedom, regains their land, regains their democracy, just like before anything happened, then Europe will be safe as well. Other countries also will be safe, not just Europe alone.
Yes, Master.
Many other countries, states like Georgia, South Ossetia, Abkhazia region, Nagorno-Karabakh have the bloody hands of Russia on them and the destruction of all that. So many millions of people died because of Russia's invasion or interference. or colonization, yeah?
Yes, Master.
Because of that, millions of people died everywhere, wherever Russian leaders went with their army.
Yes, Master.
Despite all that, the world still has forgiven Russia because they have things to offer.
Yes. Right.
But I can't believe it. This kind of brutal regime from one leader to another, it's like a succession of brutality.
Yes.
Despite that, Russia is one of the most important member nations and one of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council.
Yes,
And that's why the United Nations seem to be useless, hopeless, and helpless.
Yes,
Even in such a case like Ukraine, they almost cannot do anything to help.
Yes, that's right.
Oh my God. Can you see that?
Yes, Master.
And now NATO still continues to deny Ukraine. That welcome any other rich and famous and prestigious countries to go in as a member of NATO.
Yes.
So it's all about money, profit, and prestige. Nothing truly idealistic, nothing truly noble, or even love thy neighbor type of doctrine.
That's right. Yes.
So I told you to hell with the rules.
Yes.
There are no rules when it comes to helping your neighbor in need, especially in desperate need, in life and death matters.
Yes, exactly.
Especially they know that the enemy of their neighbor is brutal, vicious, and has a history of atrocities everywhere before.
Yes,
Before, the chief of NATO, Mr. Stoltenberg, had earned a good name in the world because he kind of negotiated between Russia and Norway at that time for the accord between these two countries, between their sea, because there's the sea between them to extract oil.
Yes.
But at that time it wasn't war, it was just a dispute.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
It was a talk between neighbors, say, where is my sea, where's your sea, that's all.
Yes.
Just a row about the fence, the invisible fence.
Yes, exactly.
So it was easy to talk it out, to negotiate, and help to settle it out.
Yes.
But now it's a big war, it's life and death and bloody and destruction everywhere in one country. And the country has done nothing wrong.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Just fit in Europe and the world as one of the countries that export the most farming produce.
Yes, Master.
And even in some countries that don't import Ukrainian farm produce. But because of the war in Ukraine, they don't have fertilizers.
Yes.
Master.
And now they are just hanging in there. They're stuck. They can't do their farming. In Africa, for example, or even Brazil is affected by the Russian war in Ukraine. Actually, it's not the Russian people. It is the government. It's Putin and the gang.
Yes, Master.
Because they continue the tradition of Stalin.